Hey, everybody, it's your man here, Felipe, administrator here at the Baseball Life Facebook group, along with my buddy Sean I butcher your name. Sean Flannery.
It's okay. Hey, I'm Sean Connery on the weekends.
That's exactly what I was going. I think we were talking about the pop culture group, and I'm like, oh, Sean Connery is here. Sean, say hi to everybody, please.
Hey, guys, what's up?
So a little bit about us. We're relaunching our podcast that we started last year for xnsports.com. And under a different name, under new management, under just new platform here on Facebook Live. This one's called the Total Bases Podcast, where we're going to be discussing fantasy baseball. And something that I like to do when we talk about fantasy baseball is kind of see how it relates to real baseball, and then how real baseball can relate, how the information we get from real baseball can influence how we play fantasy baseball. So I like to go back and forth in between realms. As that's something, I mean, Sean, when I was thinking about why we do it that way, and I think it's because we just love the game so much, as hokey as that sounds, that it's a great way to keep up with the game. Fantasy baseball is to keep up with the real baseball. And then obviously when we watch real baseball, we want to get an edge and an advantage over our competitors in fantasy baseball. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's like, baseball the season does drag on. June can get a little rough sometimes. But when you have fantasy baseball, it's much easier to stay invested, as you go through the summer months of the season. And then, of course, you get your fantasy playoff chases in August and September that kind of keep even if your team in real life is doing terrible, your fantasy team might be, right there in the playoff hunt. So it keeps you interested.
Exactly. So I think that's why it's like, that's why I don't understand why more people don't do it. Because it's a great way to keep up with the game. I mean, but anyway, we'll discuss that some more, and we'll explain more as to what gets us excited this time of the year every season. And we like to kick off because that seems to be the thing to do is talk a little bit of hot stove baseball, and because all these changes will affect our fantasy baseball leagues, our fantasy baseball teams. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna just start out with the new faces and new places aspect of things. We're gonna focus on the hitters right now. And we kick things off with Anthony Rendon, who went from the Nationals to the Angels in what appears to be a really, really good move for those guys. Sean, what do you think of that signing for them?
That was huge. They needed to pair. I was hoping that they would find a lefty either to pair with Trout, but Rendon, he's absolutely killed the Mets for the last 5-6 years. So it's good to see him out of the division. But at the same time, I like to see how they arrange the batting lineup with Trout and Rendon, because I think that could really, I don't want to say one's fantasy value might drop a little bit, but the other's is going to skyrocket. Absolutely. Whoever is batting in front or behind of Mike Trout is going to, put up some crazy fantasy numbers this year in terms of runs or RBIs.
And this team just looks much better with him in the middle of the lineup as well. I mean, I'm looking at the roster resource from Fangraphs as we speak. They got La Stella leading off, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, and Shohei Ohtani.
That's crazy.
Theoretically speaking, that should be a lineup that breaks. But there's a lot of wild cards as well. So there's you still got Brian Goodwin at right field. I'm hoping, as we might as well bring his name up later instead of later, Nick Castellanos ends up with the Angels. He had a really nice rapport with Joe Madden. Those two just kind of click together, and that would be a perfect fit for the Angels, who are looking for a right field. Because if you start the season with Brian Goodwin, God bless him, but he's not the guy. He's not the guy who's going to, put you over the top.
My only worry is if the Angels go after Castellanos as the defense, because I just don't think that defense is going to get any prettier. He is what he is. He's a great hitter. He launches the ball. He's very much one of those guys who takes every advantage of his launch angle. But on the defensive side of the ball, and if Ohtani's going to be DHing, I guess it's just going to be one of those things.
Yeah, it's like, again, you got to sacrifice, your defense, but your offense is going to look much better for it.
Yeah.
And Castellanos proved that when he's in the right situation, that he can contribute right away offensively. And we're seeing that a lot of the negative things that were happening in Detroit got to him, the losing, the massive ballpark. And then once he got to Joe Madden, there was an interview locally here in Chicago. And they interviewed Nick Castellanos, and they played him a soundbite from Joe Madden that just was singing his praises. I think Madden said something along the lines of that Nick comes in every day like it's spring training, every single day. And Castellanos broke down and cried right there on the air because it meant so much to him. And that's the kind of guy you were getting when you signed him. Of course, Scott Boras, he likes to wait a while for the best deal. So, but in an ideal world, that's the guy you get if you're an Angels fan. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Brian Goodwin in right field. I like him more as a fourth outfielder than a starting outfielder. But there's plenty of time to make those improvements, right?
Yeah.
All right, moving on to so the White Sox, right? I'm gonna just name the trio of Yasmani Grandal, Edwin Encarnacion, and Jose Abreu, who didn't go anywhere, but he technically was a free agent. So that trio. So it creates a logjam for them at first base and DH. You're taking away DH at bats from Eloy Jimenez, who you talk about bad outfielders. He's one of them.
My one thing there is, Eloy's a young player. I'd like to give him the benefit of a doubt, to get his feet underneath him. You want the hitting to show up first, and then the rest hopefully develops as he gets older.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think Encarnacion was the perfect setup for Andrew Vaughn, because I think Vaughn's going to skyrocket through the minors. I don't think he's going to be down there very long at all.
And I was going to suggest.
And so I think the Encarnacion signing. Oh,
finish up. I'm sorry. I
okay.
You.
No, you're good. I think Encarnacion is really a bridge to Vaughn, but at the same time, this is a guy that has consistently hit 30 home runs. So when it comes to fantasy, as long as there is offense in front of him, Grandal gets on base. Tim Anderson might have a little bit of regression coming in terms of batting average, but with those guys in front of him, I mean, he's another potential 30 home run, 90 RBI guy, and he's already – how old is he? I'm looking at his age right now, 37 going on 38.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane production for fantasy.
It is, and I like the deal. I just don't like how it kind of limits the White Sox's flexibility in terms of, like, being able to play multiple players at multiple positions. Like, everybody that the White Sox have, they're locked to that position. Moncada, you're playing third base. Eloy Jimenez, you're playing left field and maybe some DH. But no, there's too many DHs because you still got to consider Zach Collins, who's projected to make the team as well, the Major League roster as well. Yeah. And so, like you said, it's a good bridge. I also thought there was a nice – I even talked to my buddy Matt Bushnell about it. And I said, well, if they do sign Jose Abreu, I hope it's just for 3 years. And sure enough, they just signed him for 3 years.
Anything longer, I think, would have been a mistake with how their minor league system is built up right now.
Right.
But that allows them to have both Abreu as a handicap for Vaughn. If Vaughn, by some chance, does skyrocket to the majors very quickly, but struggles, you still have Abreu there. It's not like they're putting all of their eggs in the Vaughn basket. They'll still have Abreu.
Yeah, but you talk about Vaughn. There's another guy who is limited to where you can play him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so but it's starting to come together. It's starting to add up. As far as fantasy stock goes, I mean, Encarnacion has to lose a little bit because I think he only qualifies at DH this year, I believe. Let me double check that. Encarnacion.
Depending on where you play your fantasy.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm still old school. You got to play 20 games last year to qualify. I know.
I'm seeing 57 games at first base last
year. I just saw that right.
First base eligible.
I just saw that right now that he is first base eligible. So, but I mean, his stock shouldn't change that much. The only thing to worry is the decline in age. I mean, just the decline that comes with age, I should say. Yeah. But it's a good lineup. It should be a nice hitter-friendly ballpark as always in Comiskey, or what are they? I call it
guaranteed rate field, right?
Well, I call it arrow upfield because it's things are going up for that team. So and then Yasmani Grandal should be a top 3 catcher no matter what. So I know people were talking about, well, aren't you afraid that that contract's gonna look bad after a while? And like, man, for catchers, like 30 is in like the new 25.
You see, my thing was, a lot of Mets fans wanted Grandal. I know at the beginning of the offseason, they were talking about trying to trade Ramos to bring in Grandal, and I really do like Grandal as a player. I have him in a lot of shares of fantasy, but I'm just not a huge believer outside of the fantasy world in locking up catchers long term on the plus side of 30. I mean, it seems like a risky proposition. So I was over there with my pitchfork saying, don't sign Grandal, because right now, in terms of non-fantasy Mets related, they have a lot of other players that they need to sign before they lock up a catcher long term. on the other side of 30.
And I get that argument. I really do. I mean, yeah, you don't want an old guy in there, but I mean, he's still I don't think he's 30 years old yet. And if he is,
he's 31. He just turned 31.
Okay, so he is on a wrong side of 30, but he's also coming off like a really productive year.
Yeah.
I've always been a fan of his. And then, I mean, you look at with the alternatives that are out there in terms of the young up-and-coming catchers.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee with catchers both in fantasy and in real life. I mean, you take a look at my team, the Cubs, right? For every Wilson Contreras, you get your fair shares of Wellington Castillos and Giovanni Sotos, and you want to go even further back, you get Rick Wilkins,
Francisco, Matt Wieters. I mean,
all those guys.
Wieters topped out a little bit, but nothing like what was hyped for him.
I mean, that guy came in hyped, and look at the Mets with Travis d'Arnaud. We might as well bring him up right now. He just signed with the Braves, and he was supposed to be the next big thing, and he looked like he's turning things around. I think he was 30 years old last year. So I'm telling you, man, when you're a catcher, older is always better.
I will say this. The last few years in fantasy, this is completely fantasy relevant. If you are in either a two-catcher league or a daily league, the Braves always pick two Braves catchers. They split time like no other, and you can get away with some of the craziest stuff just because of how much they handicap their catchers. Because you could, realistically, if it was a two-catcher weekly league, you could put both Braves catchers in there, and they're probably going to get the same amount of at-bats as, two starting catchers would.
Yeah. But in terms of like a traditional 12-team league, like having that set up, like for Travis d'Arnaud and Tyler Flowers, is very frustrating because you want that everyday catcher on your team.
Yeah, you want one of them to run with it, yeah.
Yeah, even a 60-40 split would be a welcome addition. But instead, you see, if you look at the daily lineups, it'll be d'Arnaud one day, Flowers the next day, d'Arnaud, Flowers, d'Arnaud, Flowers, d'Arnaud. That's why, to circle back to Yasmani Grandal, kind of questionable from a real baseball perspective, but I think the short term outweighs the effects of the long term. Plus, he's in the American League, so that should work out well. But in terms of fantasy, I mean, his stock shouldn't change at all. I mean, even though he's moving to a new league, he's still a top 3 catcher. And that's what we want. We want that guy who's going to dominate the at-bats and the playing time.
And I think what works best for Grandal going to the AL right now is, being a catcher, you can still keep his very much plus bat in the lineup if you want to give him a day off behind the plate, which I think with his defense, the way it's been the last few years, you want him to stay behind the plate as much as he can.
Yep.
But that's definitely a great addition for the White Sox. Grandal was the perfect move for that young pitching staff to have a plus pitch framer behind the plate.
Yeah, I mean,
you'll see a fantasy improvement from the pitchers too.
Yeah, and I was gonna suggest that. I've been a big fan of Grandal since his days with the Padres. I know he got busted for PED use, but he's been one of the better defensive catchers in the last 5 years or so, it seems like. And yeah, this should you would think that this would help Ronaldo Lopez immensely, Michael Kopech immensely, Dylan Bundy, man. Dylan Cease immensely. So, like I can tell, I'm a big fan of the move. So so that's said and done. The next two guys, Josh Donaldson and Marcell Ozuna, they haven't been signed yet, but they are projected to be the next two guys with the highest projected WAR. Any idea where they might be going to, these two right here?
Between Castellanos and Ozuna?
No, Donaldson and Ozuna.
Oh, Donaldson and Ozuna? I think Donaldson makes sense for the Twins. I'm not sure how much sense it makes now that the Twins have extended Sano.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think the Twins would like to move Sano off third base. And I think Donaldson gives them the ability to do that, even though I'm not sure how much I'm going to buy into Donaldson being a plus glove at 35 plus. Because that's crazy to me. I'm looking at his age right now. He's 34, but feels like he's only been in the league for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, he was a late bloomer. Remember that diamond in the rough, or I'm sorry, in
Oakland catching prospect.
And before that, I think he was with the Cubs as well, and we let him slip away. But who knew he was going to turn into this? And I'm sorry, I shouldn't say diamonds in the rough because that's not correct. Because they play on diamonds, so it should be we're looking for roughs on the diamonds, right? We're looking for that rough player.
On the diamond.
That should be the proper term in baseball context and lingo. But yeah, man, he was a late bloomer, and that's why teams are kind of hesitating to give him that long-term deal because it seems like he was under team control well into his 30s, and And yeah, he had a very stellar year last year after bouncing back nicely from a injury-riddled 2018, I have to assume. He only played 52 games in 2018, 155 big ones in 2019. Helped the so yeah, you would think that, you know, a team like the Nationals who lost Anthony Rendon would want to pick up on that, but they haven't, or looks like
I think the Nationals right now are more strapped for cash than more people would think. I mean, they got a lot in terms of their TV deal coming up, but when you look at what they're still paying Scherzer, what they just extended to Strasburg, which was a mistake if you ask me. I think Rendon was the better pick if they were going to play with their hearts. But Josh Donaldson, he could be Adrian Beltre or he could be Nelson Cruz. Either of those situations are really good production for him because he seems like a hitter who's going to just keep hitting. It's just if he stays in the NL, how do you keep his bat in the lineup if the defense does fall off? Which it didn't last year. He was one of the better defenders in the league, I believe, at least according to DRS. But how do you keep his bat in the lineup?
That's a really good point. And again, that's the disadvantage of signing with an NL team over an AL team. But you know, that's part of the price you pay, right? You're it's more of like you're hoping that he stays in one piece.
Yeah.
So, but if you're a contending team who's on the cusp of trying to win a championship, I don't know.
Twins. Sorry, I had something in my throat there.
I mean that's a nice. I mean, what they got nothing to lose, man. I mean, they should just go for it. And of course, the Nationals aren't gonna are pretty content with I think Carter Kieboom coming up soon.
Yeah. And then they have Kieboom, and then they re-signed both Asdrubal Cabrera and Starlin Castro to kind of protect themselves if Kieboom falls flat again.
Right.
Which Cabrera, I had him in a large fantasy league, and I had him when he was starting in Texas. I think he was batting like 230, 240 in Texas, but he was hitting situationally. He had a lot of RBIs, great for fantasy. And then he got cut by Texas. Washington picked him up, and I think in 56 games he had something like 48 RBIs with the Nationals. So he seemed to really enjoy being back in the National League East. So that's a kind of a guy who to count on, who he's not going to give you Anthony Rendon production, but he might be able to knock in the guys like Turner and Soto in front of him if given the opportunity.
And then we quickly move on to Marcell Ozuna, who had a nice productive season, but it was the quietest 29 home runs and 89 RBI that you've ever heard from the guy. I'm sorry, but this dude was a disappointment with the Cardinals just based on what he was doing with the Marlins before he went to the Cardinals. And I don't know. And you can see why people are kind of hesitant. He's a minus defender as well, just like the other outfielders we've mentioned so far. But, I mean, there's still some untapped upside there. Where do you see him going?
I used to be all aboard the do not draft Marcell Ozuna. I didn't really buy the profile. And then I just kind of started looking at his baseball savant numbers, and the dude hits the ball really freaking hard.
Good point.
And he only batted, I believe it was like 241 this
243.
But had an expected batting average of 288. Yeah, 243. And expected batting average of 288. The last 3 years, it's been 287, 291, 288. 2017, of course, was the great year for him. 37 home runs. And his expected WOBA was actually higher this year than it was in his 2017 season, his last year with the Marlins. So he's one of those guys, depending on where he falls in drafts, I might find myself picking up shares of him. Because you look at his baseball savant page, and you get a lot of red. 93rd percentile exit velocity, 96% hard hit percentage, all 90 plus in expected batting average, expected slugging, expected WOBA. I mean, that's a guy that if he falls in drafts, depending on where he ends up free agent wise, because I think that's the big thing affecting both him and Donaldson right now, is they do both still have the qualifying offers attached. So whoever signs them has to give up that draft pick compensation. Castellanos does not, which it kind of makes me surprised, but you said Boris Client, that would make sense. But Donaldson and Ozuna both have the QO attached, and I think that's what's preventing both from kind of signing right now. But Ozuna is a guy I will jump on in drafts if he falls.
Yeah, and reading the comments here, Roberto, our fellow admin, Roberto Martinez suggested, don't forget about Ozuna's shortcomings on defense. There's that one play where he falls flat on his face. And like, ooh,
Yeah,
this guy's
he
supposed to
climbed the fence and then fell off the fence.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is your 5-tool player right here? I don't think so. So that's pretty funny. But yeah,
are you not entertained?
But those are very good points about Ozuna. I maybe there's a lot of bad luck, and if he goes to a better ballpark, a better team. Well, not that the Cardinals are a bad team, but I don't know. There's something off about because everything you say makes sense. It's just not, it's not the production that you're expecting. The real numbers.
He had the 7th largest differential between his expected batting average and batting average. It was a 47-point difference. The batters in front of him, this is a motley crew of names: Zach Cozart, Kendrys Morales, Nick Williams, Josh Harrison, Luke Mailey, who I believe Vince and them covered in their podcast as the big acquisition for the Pirates, and then Lucas Duda. Those were the 6 guys in front of Marcell Ozuna, and being unlucky in terms of expected batting average. Yeah, so I do think there was a lot of bad luck because he smoked the ball last year. He hit it really hard.
And Ozuna's much better than those guys you mentioned as well. So
he's in the wrong list there.
Yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt then. All right, I'll ease up on the guy. So we'll see who he signs with, but I'm not going to hold my breath too much. Next guy on the list with a projected WAR of 2.2 to the Philadelphia Phillies goes Sir Didi Gregorius. Didi Gregorius, you like that signing there, Sean?
I'm torn on Didi Gregorius because he's always outperformed his metrics. You take a look at his baseball savant, his hard hit rate. None of it really jumps out to you, but he has the lofty, pull-heavy swing.
Yeah.
I was shocked to hear because I always thought, with the eye test, Didi was a great defender. You look at baseball savant's new metric of the infield outs above average, and Didi actually ranked as one of the worst fielders in baseball. But in terms of at least solidifying Philadelphia's infield, and when it comes to fantasy, he's going to have a good RBI chance depending on where Girardi puts him in the lineup, which I would think his connection with Girardi is going to buy him a good amount of rope. So he'll probably bat towards the top of the lineup. Good for runs and RBIs. I'm just not sure if it's going to be what a lot of normal Didi drafters get.
Yeah.
I mean, they expected 20-plus home runs, 80-plus RBIs. They could still very well get that, or it could fall a little short of that, depending on where he bats in the lineup and how he adjusts batting outside the AL East. Because anytime I see a hitter leave the AL East, I expect their numbers to come down a little bit because they're not batting in Yankee, they're not batting in Camden, and they're not batting at Fenway.
Well, to counterpoint that, I mean, Philadelphia has always been a hitter's ballpark. Yeah, a hitter's ballpark. So maybe there won't be that loss. I mean, there is a concern of him switching leagues and coming off of what was it, Tommy John surgery?
Yeah,
and he's still going to be playing shortstop. So those are concerns. But I think from a power potential from middle infield, I think it should be fine. I'd rather not start him, but if you're just kind of waiting around for shortstop or second base, I think he might qualify at both. I'll double check those numbers in a bit. But if you're just looking for that, I think that's a nice floor player right there. So he only qualifies at shortstop, by the way. So,
yeah. I think he's one of those guys, if he's there late in drafts, jump on him as a possible backup bench piece.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go out of my way to get Didi Gregorius this year. Just it's not happening.
So in my premature rankings, I have Didi as the 24th best shortstop right now. So this must have been
who are the guys right in front of him and right behind him?
I'm about to go there. But so this is this must have been right before he signed with the Phillies, and I haven't had a chance to update yet. But I'm also, both my leagues are gonna be keeper leagues this upcoming year. So I'm also drafting. I gotta be with the mentality that I have to look out for young players as well.
Yeah.
So in front of Didi is Dansby Swanson, Carter Kieboom, Royce Lewis, Wander Franco, and Kevin Newman. So you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Just a quick off topic. You mentioned Royce Lewis. He was one of those guys, he's up towards the tops of every prospect list that you can find on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
But I would look at his fan graphs and his baseball reference, and I'm like, the production isn't there. And I know we mentioned it when we did our podcast about this time last year, but I was working for the Biscuits, and I believe July or August, the Twins AA affiliate came to town, and I was really excited because it had Royce Lewis, Alex Kirilloff, Trevor Larnach. And Trevor Larnach, I knew of. I didn't really care for him. I was excited to see Alex Kirilloff. I left watching that 5-game series with, I'm not sure how I feel about Kirilloff. Royce Lewis is legit because the bat speed that he had, I'm not sure when he's going to get to the majors and impact in a true fantasy aspect. But watching him play, he's a ball player. And then Trevor Larnach, who's also an outfielder, first base type like Kirilloff, at Oregon State, I believe. A lot like Conforto, honestly. The hit tool is going to play because he raked the Montgomery pitching. I think he had like 7 or 8 hits in 3 games. I was like, God. But yeah, Royce Lewis. I could see that in a keeper league. I would pick Royce Lewis over Didi Gregorius.
Yeah, and I have Royce Lewis on my keeper team right now, just sitting in the minor league slot. But you mentioned the Biscuits. Why don't you tell the folks out there what you've been doing with the Montgomery Biscuits last year?
So it's kind of a poor man's StatCast. Pitch Effects, which does a lot of the ball analysis on spin rate and stuff like that. They also have a Field Effects, which does all of the tracking for the ball when it's in play and the players that are on the field. So the cameras are trained to, track the players as they go, but sometimes when the plays get a little convoluted or, multiple relays, the cameras lose track of the player. And so just kind of data analysis and data collection of active, balls in play type stuff. And it was really cool because you would get to see exactly, how fast some guys were running, which made me a big believer in Vidal Brujan in the Tampa Bay Rays system. That guy is like a mini Jose Reyes. He's a spark plug. So I'm sold on him in fantasy too. I'm trying to buy him in every dynasty keeper league I'm in.
All right, well, good stuff, man. I really enjoy like the little conversations we have in private about what you're seeing out there. And I know you mentioned the Rays, the middle infield. I'm sorry, what was his name again? You kind of
Vidal Brujan.
Yeah, you're like, hey man, keep an eye out on this guy. And then next thing I know, like he's been like on every top 5 list. Like, wow, Sean's calling the shots now.
Yeah, I think he stole combined between high A and double A like 48 bases, and I caught maybe 12 times. I mean, he was just a very, very aggressive runner. The Tampa system as a whole, I mean, you had guys that were getting caught stealing more than they were actually stealing bases because they just if they get on first base, they're running. And that was at all levels of their minor league team. So it was really fun to watch. It was interesting. It was kind of like watching the Royals in 2015. I mean, because they were slapping the ball and they were running the bases. And they had a lot of fast guys. Brujan, Lucius Fox, Taylor Walls, all plus runners in that Tampa Bay Rays system.
So Tampa Bay.
They're all middle infielders too. So I don't know what they're going to do. They got a lot of decisions to make coming up here.
So Tampa Bay going into the what do they call it? The inefficient market system there.
Yeah. At least in the minors they are.
All right, moving on. Well, let's move on and talk about the Reds, who signed a big bat in Mike Moustakas. Really good signing for them. Look at this lineup. They got Shogo Akiyama, who also was acquired by the Reds. Joey Votto, Eugenio Suarez, Mike Moustakas at the cleanup, Aristides Aquino, Jesse Winker, Freddie Galvez, and Tucker Barnhart, but who cares? But
Barnhart's a Gold Glover. Leave him alone.
You would think a catcher who gets that much playing time would be somewhat productive. He's basically the Kendrick Perkins of catchers in fantasy baseball.
Oh, that's rough. Yeah, Moustakas to Cincinnati surprised me. I thought a great place for him to have gone would have been L.A. Left-handed bat, third baseman. I mean, granted, I'm not going to argue with the third baseman they ended up.
But Sean, they already have Max Muncy. What do you want Moustakas for?
No. The Angels.
Oh, you said the Dodgers. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought I might have just said Los Angeles. My bad.
Oh, okay, I got you.
I think him in Cincinnati, fantasy-wise, it's going to be great.
Yep.
But it all depends on how much playing time he gets because right now they have him pegged as the starting second baseman. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if he's going to be a starting second baseman for 3 years. I'm not sure how long he'll last at second base this year. Right.
Well, you worry about that when you get there, don't you, Sean?
Yeah, I guess so. But the production, that ballpark, that lineup, he's going to be a 3-category stud. Home runs, RBIs. Just put him in the lineup. Put him in, I'd say, behind Votto, in front of Suarez.
Yeah.
And that's going to work for you.
well, if you do that, then you got too many left-handed hitters up on the top portion of your lineup.
I was who do they have? Who do they have leading off right now?
Akiyama, who's listed as a left-handed platoon with I don't know, Philip Irvin or Nick Senzel. I mean, look at this.
Okay.
That's the thing about the Reds is that everybody's in love with them.
Play Jesse Winker. That's all I want. That's all I want. It's not going to happen, but I want him.
He was kind of disappointing the last couple of seasons. One was an injury. The other one was just ineffectiveness. And right now he's listed as the left-handed platoon, again, with either Nick Senzel or Philip Irvin, or you got Josh Van Meter as well. And that's the thing about the Reds, that for all the talk about how tanking is a smart thing to do, the Reds have been just acquiring players here and there, and just little by little. I mean, I just named you the list.
And building a team. I will say this.
Yeah.
Everyone thought Winker did take a step back this year. I'll concede he did kind of have a down year for him, but he struggled to the tune of an 830 OPS when his OPS last year was 836. So, I mean, I'll take a struggling Jesse Winker that has a 360 on base and 475 slugging. I'll take that. Especially if he goes to the top of the lineup, he'll walk a little bit more than 357.
Yeah.
But, I mean, even in a bad year, like, I'll take an 830 OPS in a bad year.
I was gonna say, I just don't like the fact that he's listed as a platoon player.
Yeah,
and that's
they're not going to play him against lefties. I'm not sure what his minor league splits look like against lefties, but last year, looking at it right now, he batted under 200 against lefties. So he's probably just going to be a platoon guy. It might have just been one of those things, though. You got to expose him to it, and you can't just give him. I mean, that's what happened with Conforto. I know. So.
Yeah. It happens with a lot of guys. Corey Dickerson is a name that I used to argue with Rockies fans all the time. It's like, no, there's a reason why he's not with the team anymore. So he's a platoon player. You can't hit him. He's what was it? Seth Smith, right? Is that
yeah. I was looking at Seth. There were two guys, Seth Smith and Carlos Quentin, that were like these power hitting outfielders. That I was like, wait, those guys played in the 2010s. It was like a bat flip compilation for the decade. And both Carlos Quentin and Seth Smith were on it. And I think the best one I saw was also Jason Worth. He hit a home run and then, like, on a line drive, just threw the bat from the batter's box to the dugout. Like, I think it cut off blades of grass. It was a great video to watch. But Seth Smith and Carlos Quentin, I was like, those guys played in 2010? Like, I was really confused.
Let's quickly move on because we're now getting to the guys who are projected to get less than 2 WAR this upcoming season. So let's try to do some lightning round action. Starting off with Cesar Hernandez, who goes to Cleveland.
Give me all of the Cesar Hernandez shares. Give me all of
really
them. That towards the top of the lineup. I think he's going to go back to walking a little bit more because he got very swing happy being in the bottom of the lineup in Philly. I think you put him back towards the top of the lineup, he's going to walk. He's going to be in front of guys like Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez. Yeah, give me all of those shares.
Well, currently he's batting 6th, according to Roster Resource.
No, he's going to bat leadoff, 100%.
You think so? Over Lindor?
Lindor's the perfect 2-hitter in my mind. I think you're wasting him in the leadoff spot.
Yeah, good. That's an interesting point. But I know everybody loves Cesar Hernandez, but every time I think about him, I'm like, okay, that's a solid but unspectacular pick, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about him, but I don't know. There's just nothing that excites me about him except maybe the ability to get on base and limit strikeouts.
Score some runs. If you're in a points league, he's not going to strike out a whole lot. And then the stolen bases. When Kapler came in, they stopped running. Almost completely. So if I think Terry Francona might let him run a little bit more. Granted, he is 30 years old now, which feels crazy to say because it feels like he's still just 25. But I like him in Cleveland. I just wanted him to go where he would get a starting job. Cleveland's moved on from Kipnis. Second base is wide open.
Yeah.
That's it. That's his job to run with unless he gets hurt or just falls off the map completely, which I don't see happening.
It's a nice replacement there for Kipnis, who has seen better days in the past. But quickly moving on to I don't want to talk about Jason Castro. Like I told you, man, these catchers, they just if they get to a certain age, they become hot commodities, whether we want to admit to or not. So we can skip him. And that's like a 3-headed monster in Los Angeles right now with the Angels. So I don't want none of that if I can avoid it. Brett Gardner resigns with the Yankees, 4th outfielder, right? Because the Yankees are pretty stacked in the outfield as well. Yasiel Puig, still a free agent. Any thoughts on him?
I'm shocked he hasn't signed. Like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has no qualifying offer. I don't know what's stopping teams. Either he has way too high market demands. Is he a Boris client?
I no, I don't think so.
You
I'm not
don't think
sure,
so?
but I'm not 100% sure. But I
But
mean,
what are teams right now that have outfield needs? Like
I,
I feel like if you put him in Colorado,
yeah,
he would just. That would be so much fun to watch.
yeah.
That he would hit 40 home runs, and it would be with the air. He'd throw a ball from right field to third base, and it would get there in 2 seconds. And it's like all those throws that you saw Mondesi make from Colorado
Yeah.
when he would travel there to play. And it's like all those guys, the right fielders with strong arms, when they go to Colorado, you see some crazy, stupid play at third. And I think he'd be a great pickup for Colorado. It's just I don't know where he's going to go. I have no clue.
No, I mean, I thought the White Sox had a good chance to get him, and then that would have been great to put him with all the other Cubans on that team, Abreu, Moncada, Robert. But no, I guess that's not going to happen. And you're right. I mean, who wouldn't want a 29-year-old free agent? I would say in a perfect
there's
world,
got to be something we don't know.
it's probably the reputation. But we also see Ozuna and Castellanos. I mean, outfield traditionally in this decade, or in the past decade, I should say, whatever, in the 2010s, has been it's been kind of lacking in the free agent market. I mean, look how long it took Yoenis Cespedes, Justin Upton, and all those guys to sign. Bryce Harper took him forever to sign. So I don't know what's going on with outfield. The teams are just not aggressively pursuing these outfielders like we've seen in the past growing up. So there must be something. Plus, it's just cheaper to just use your own outfielders in your own farm system, right?
Yeah. Especially when they're the cheaper market value alternative.
And they're better defenders anyway. I mean, Yasiel Puig is listed as a negative 7.1 defensive runs above replacement, whatever. I mean,
I will say this. On Fangraphs, he's projected 1.8 WAR. I'm taking the over on that 100%. Yeah. I'm taking the over there.
And the projections are usually conservative by nature.
Yeah,
anyway.
They are.
And they're also naughty by nature. Hey, ho. Hey. Moving. Go ahead. What's up?
Jonathan Scope.
Oh, good.
Are you having any Jonathan Scope?
Let's pair him up with Jonathan Scope and CJ Cron, which that was
Detroit.
The Tigers. The Tigers making some wind here, breaking their bad habits. You know what the thing about the Tigers? They didn't have to do this, but they went ahead and did it anyway, just because it might work out for them if Scope and Cron are somewhat productive and catch some of that Jonathan Villar, little bit of production.
They become flippable assets. And
Bingo.
I'll take shares of Cron. He hits the ball hard. He's always hit the ball hard. He's always posted really good expected slugging, expected batting average numbers, at least above average. And he has what appears to be a full-time playing job. So I'll take him. I'm not really sure how Scope's going to handle that expansive ballpark, but I'll take Cron. I know Scope has he was supposed to be so good. He had that one great year in Baltimore and then kind of fell flat afterwards. And I'm not sure when he's going to make it back or if he can make it back.
All right. And that's pretty much it for the hitters. I don't want to – we talked about d'Arnaud and Flowers already. I don't want to talk about Brian Dozier here. He's getting up there in age. Or he looks like an old 33-year-old. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, that's weird to think that Josh Donaldson's older than Brian Dozier. That's really weird to think.
Yeah, and then it just I don't want to talk about any more of these free agents. So let's talk about the pitchers now and their signings. But before we move on to that talk, I just got a little something to share with everybody here. So just bear with me as I share my screen with the world.
Dun.
I assure you there's nothing lewd or insensitive or anything like that. Oh, no, it's a spreadsheet. Oh, my God, get this off the screen. But this is these are my rankings. Hey, stop talking spreadsheets and talk more baseball, goddammit. So these are the 2019 rankings that I had last year for my fantasy. These are the rankings I use for my fantasy leagues. And the way it works is, I don't know if you guys can see the highlighted version, but if you're seeing SP1 and 1 and 2, I consider those my first tier and second tier pitchers, starting pitchers. So I always try to target 2 or 3 of these guys, and then so on and so forth. So I'm working from left to right, And one thing I wanted to point out is just how these top 10 guys, how dynamic this list is, right? And again, I'm always trying to draft for keeper leagues and that because younger is always better. So that's why Justin Verlander is like number 4 on my list. But guess what? It was Verlander, Cole, and then maybe Steven Strasburg, maybe Jacob deGrom, and then just everybody else, because you could not trust a single starting pitcher that you drafted in the top 12, top 15, top 20 last year. Would you agree with that statement at least?
Yeah, it's volatile. It's if you don't get one of those four, the DeGrom, Scherzer, Verlander, Cole, and you could maybe put Chris Sale in there, because I think even last year with how he underperformed, a lot of his peripherals still looked great. So I think you need one of those four, maybe five guys. And if you don't, that tier 2 really seems to be disappearing. It just seems to be either they graduate to tier 1 or they fall back into tier 3. It's just I feel like you got to get one of those five guys if you're going to compete.
But I was gonna say, oops, I didn't realize I left out. But yeah, that's the thing, right? And it's like trying to get this guessing game. Okay, so then if that's the case, if you can't even trust these supposed steady pitchers, then you start wondering, oh, who can I trust on this side, right? And it becomes frustrating. I mean, Nick Pivetta, yuck. Even
the helium in Nick Pivetta, that is finally out of the balloon. Thank God.
You got John.
You listened to any podcast last year, and it was Nick Pivetta this, Nick Pivetta that. And all I saw this year was Nick Pivetta 6 ERA.
and that's why I list him as my third or fourth tier starting pitcher, because I heard those same podcasts you heard, and like, all right, well, I'm bumping him.
He looked like a very interesting asset.
And I'm going to bump him up a little bit, but I'm not putting him in my top 24. No way. There's John Gray, who has all the upside in the world. But guess what? He still pitches for the Rockies. I don't care that peripherals are this and that. I'm not spending a high draft pick on the guy. Alex Reyes, who always comes with the upside, but he can't stay healthy. I know I drafted Steven Matz in my one league last year, and he disappointed immediately, and now he's listed as a bullpen guy. So there's, like you said, a lot of volatility, which – I'll stop sharing now, and we'll bring our two lovely faces up, which brings up my next point about the starting pitchers that were signed, starting with Garrett Cole, how everybody was losing their mind at the money he got. Steven Strasburg, Zach Wheeler, Madison Bumgarner. You just saw the list, how dynamic and volatile it is. So when these teams who are contending they see these guys available, this is why they get the money that they got. This is why they're not like outfielders waiting for someone to call them up, right?
Yeah.
They're already getting calls before Christmas. Hey, we want you to sign right now. Let's go. and
let's get this done. Let's just go ahead and knock it out.
And my big soapbox that I'm on right now is teams are doing a bad job of developing starting pitchers. All right? That's why when you see Garrett Cole, of course the price is going to go up on him, because everybody needs that ace pitcher that is just so hard to find nowadays, it seems like.
Yeah. And then you see Washington really overspend, in my opinion, to keep Strasburg, because it's so hard to actually, draft, develop, and keep a star starting pitcher like Steven Strasburg. So I think that was why they were very hesitant to let him go. I think they felt Rendon was more replaceable with what they had in the farm system than Strasburg was with what they have in the farm system. Which, like I said, if I was the GM, if I was Mike Rizzo, I would have picked Rendon over Strasburg and not lost any sleep over it. But I also understand that they were he was their World Series MVP. It's kind of hard to let somebody like that walk.
Honestly, I thought Rendon had a good argument to win the MVP as well. So, yeah, but it seems like the pitchers always get the glory and the money at this point.
Yeah, and the money.
And the money. So, and it's for the same reason. And we bring up a guy, I know my buddy Matt Bushnell, I bring his name up a lot because I talk to him on a daily basis, and we talk, what do you think about Lucas Giolito? And I don't know if I trust him. Can he do it again this year? Okay, so we went through the list, right? All right, so top 20, we started naming pitchers, and like, well, Giolito's better than this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. And by the time it was all said and done, we were both comfortable putting Lucas Giolito at number 11. But here's the thing about Lucas Giolito, and I'll finish, and I'll cede the floor to you, sir. The thing about Lucas Giolito is look how long it took. He's a bona fide prospect. Look how long it took him to develop. And to make things worse, insiders are not even giving the White Sox credit for developing him. This guy went out of the team to develop his own style. And you saw the results last year because of the autodidact initiative he took last year. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it was a lot of people. I'm looking kind of at his page right now because he made those 7 starts, in 2017 with pretty good results. And then in 2018, his first full season, it was just not good. And then this year, I think you knew he was going to be better than a 6 ERA or a 6 ERA over 32 starts, which I think that's probably the best baseline to set up is, hey, he pitched through a full season. I think that's one of the most important things for a young pitcher, including like a guy like Steven Matz. Steven Matz finally hit that 30 marker over the last 30 start marker. So I don't know. I think Giolito might regress a little, but I think he's still going to be a very good. Actually 3.4 ERA. I could see him repeating that pretty easily.
Yeah, and you kind of have to go with the sure thing, and he's by default looking like the sure thing. So
yeah,
compared to these other guys, and let's get going. So we mentioned the big four, what I was referring to tier one, even though Bumgarner should not be in tier one, but just because of past performance, you kind of have to put him in the bunch, and he definitely got paid like one too. So, well, let's start with Bumgarner. Any faith that he can still be productive in Arizona?
I'm avoiding Bumgarner. That's just that won't be my risk to take. That there's a couple other guys I'm willing to reach on. Who one you mentioned, Zach Wheeler. I will reach for Zach Wheeler this year, but
right.
I'm not going to reach for Ryu or Bumgarner. Not at all.
Yeah, and Ryu. I guess he wasn't like that threshold between 1 and 2 tier right there. But there's another name right there that he got a big chunk of change this offseason. So you don't like him up in Toronto, up in Canada?
He's always been good at making or inducing soft contact. I think that is a skill he's just always been able to have. I think one thing with him is staying healthy. Last year was the first real year he's, I think, made – let me see how many starts he made last year. He made 29 starts. That was a career high. Well, actually, he made 30 in 2013, but in the years after that, 26, 24.
Yeah, so health's always been an issue for the guy.
Yeah, health's always been an issue, but whenever he's been healthy, he's performed. But I'm not sure how well that's going to play going into the AL East. And just like I said, when hitters leave the AL East, I expect the numbers to come down. Mm-hmm. When a pitcher goes into the AL East, I expect the same thing.
Arrow up, man.
Yeah, well, their numbers are going to go down, but the ERA is going to go up.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's not going to be good. Kyle Gibson to the Rangers. He's the latest in pitching proclamation project that the Rangers seem to be on for the umpteenth year in a row as they can't get a good rotation going. What do you think about that move?
I think that's going to be one of the more surprisingly solid starting staffs in baseball. I want at least one of their guys on all of my fantasy teams. I want a Sheriff Kluber. I want a Sheriff Minor. I want a Sheriff Lynn. And if Kyle Gibson can learn to not throw his fastball and just throw all of his secondary pitches, because I saw, I think it was Alex Fast or Alex Chamberlain on Twitter, all of his secondary pitches have a pitch value over his career of like 50 plus. Wow. When you combine them. His fastball over his career has a pitch value of negative 50. So it's like and last year was the first year he's thrown his slider more than his fastball. So if that's something that Texas can keep him doing that, I think there's a lot of unsexy upside in the Rangers starting staff, 100%.
I mean, it does look good, but I always have a rule of thumb when it comes to the Texas Rangers rotation. Never draft a starting pitcher from the Texas Rangers. That being said, however, I understand they have a new ballpark. Nobody knows how it's going to play.
Yeah.
So that mystery is still there. But on paper, Corey Kluber, Mike Minor, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and they got Jordan Lyles listed as a number 5 pitcher here.
I feel like number 5 is going to be a rotating spot until they figure something out.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. But that's a really solid rotation. Yeah, still.
It's not sexy, but it's going to get ball games won. I'm not sure in terms of fantasy, but I see a lot of inning eaters. Those are 4 inning eaters I want in fantasy right there.
Yeah, but I was going to say, I'm very queasy about them, and understandably so. But there's nothing wrong with it. But it's just I want to see if there's better alternatives before I start adding shares of Texas Rangers pitchers on my team, and that's just from being burned from before and just looking at past pitchers that have failed miserably down there for some reason. But they're getting into a new stadium. We'll see how it plays.
See how the ballpark plays.
Speaking of a better pitching ballpark, Kevin Gausman to the Giants.
Do they have him listed as a starter right now, or do they still have him listed as a reliever? Because I can't remember.
Man, if he's
let me pull it up.
I'm pulling it up right now as well. But if he's on the list,
yeah, they have him as a SP3.
Oh my God! So yeah, and look at this rotation: Johnny Cueto, Jeff Samardzija, Kevin Gausman.
Hello, 2012.
So yeah, another one, but they're 4 and 5 pitchers. I don't want any part of their 4 and 5 pitchers, or their 6 pitcher, or their 7 pitcher. But the top 3 are not that bad.
Like I said, I'm not going to buy into anything of Johnny Cueto. I like the guy, but that's a hard to have Tommy John this late, and I think that was his second Tommy John, I believe. So. I've seen some people do some deep dives into Tyler Beede that make me somewhat optimistic that he could pitch better. Logan Webb, not really crazy about, but Derek Rodriguez, had the great 2018 and then was terrible in 2019. And they have a couple of other starters at AA and AAA that I think people are sleeping on and could be really good fantasy assets just in terms of being able to pitch in San Francisco, which is always a plus.
Yeah.
Just like we used to pick Marlins pitchers several years ago, even though they weren't as good, but they got to pitch half of their games in Miami. So
that's why I say it's not that bad just based on where they pitch.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah, you put them anywhere else. Like you put all these 3 guys I just mentioned in Baltimore, and suddenly I don't want any part to do with them anymore. But
I don't think Kevin Gausman wants anything to do with Baltimore either.
Yeah, that's why he left, right? He bolted right out. But no, listen, this is why, that is the perks of going to San Francisco, because you pitch in that ginormous ballpark. You're not going to get a lot of run support, but everything should look good in terms of the traditional counting stats and the traditional ERA stats and all that. It always looks better. Everything looks better in San Francisco in that regard. Really quick, Dallas Keuchel to the White Sox. You like it or don't like it?
What was the money for it? I'm trying to remember.
Looks
468 or 368.
According to this thing, it's 3 years, $55 million.
They're 350. I think it's a good stabilizer for their rotation. I don't expect anything crazy from Dallas Keuchel.
Yeah.
Never really have, but good stabilizer, good innings eater in terms of fantasy.
And this is something that, like I said, Matt Bushman was a diehard White Sox fan, or as I like to call him, a hard die White Sox White fan. I was preaching, you need to bring a veteran pitcher. You cannot come into the season with Dylan Cease and Michael Kopech as your number 4 and number 5. You just can't, not if you're competing. You can't do it. And this, like you said, it's a nice stabilizer. It brings everybody else down a peg. So Dylan Cease, instead of being the number 4 guy, he's now the number 5 guy. And now you could spot starts for Michael Kopech as he recovers from Tommy John surgery. They brought in Gio Gonzalez as well, who I'm not crazy about, but again, another veteran presence that every competing team should need or should want to have on their team. It looks a lot better. And just for those who can't see what I see, Lucas Giolito, Dallas Keuchel, Ronaldo Lopez, Gio Gonzalez, Dylan Cease.
I like Dylan Cease. I'm expecting a lot of Dylan Cease this year.
Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good late last year, but again, he's going to be playing a full season for the first time, Major League full season this year, assuming he stays for the whole thing and doesn't get dropped down or doesn't get tired out. The Major League Baseball season is a grind, man. It's a marathon that better athletes and better players have fallen victim to. So it's really tough to depend on young players like that. But with those other veterans in front of him, he should just flourish in that role, I think. Moving on. So we go from Dallas Keuchel, and the Braves countered that move with Cole Hamels.
118. I'm still a believer in there's no such thing as a bad one-year deal.
Yeah.
But for a team that really doesn't spend money like the Braves, I can't help but think that $18 million could have been better spent elsewhere, like on Josh Donaldson.
Well, it's 18 for 1 year versus Donaldson.
18 over multiple years, or 18 plus over multiple years.
Yeah, and that's why, technically that's still a bargain, and they don't – but I think they saw that Cole Hamels was hurt and that he just wasn't able to bounce back from all those injuries.
Yeah.
And they're banking that changeup is still one of the best in all of baseball and that it could still be productive. And again, veteran pitching is always a plus and for a contending team.
Especially a young pitching team like the Braves.
Bingo. I was just going to mention Mike Soroka, Cole Hamels, Mike Fultinovich. It's Fultinovich.
Yeah,
I don't know.
There you go. Fultinovich.
That's one of my favorite pastimes is butchering Polish surnames. Max Fried or Fried and Sean Newcomb, who has never met a pitcher he hasn't walked yet. So he's always had. I mean, I remember when I don't know. You were. I don't know if you were there or not, but I was a part of a lot of Angels groups, and oh my God, when the day that Sean Newcomb was traded away to the Braves for Andrelton Simmons. People lost their collective shit. How can you do this? Yeah, and apparently Angel fans talk like Midwestern meatball fans. How can you do this? You're letting a good pitcher go for an overrated.
Sounds like something from The Simpsons.
So yeah, but now look at him. Sean Newcomb still trying to fight for a rotation spot when he probably should just be a left-handed reliever. Yeah.
I think Hamels is a handicap for guys like Anderson. And Anderson, Wright, and there's a third guy that of their pitching prospects that are all right there at the AAA level.
Yeah,
Ian Anderson,
Mike
Kyle Wright.
Sorry.
Now I'm gonna have to go.
I got you, man. I got you. You keep talking though.
So I saw a couple of them in AA when they came to Montgomery. Joey Wentz, I'm not sure. I think he ended up making it to AAA, and he was the one I liked the most. But I think that is the main reason they brought in Hamels. Is just in case Anderson and Wright aren't ready to take that rotation spot, Hamels can buy them time to get a few starts in the minors and then maybe get their feet wet with a start in June or July.
So the guys that are listed here, according to Roster Resource, the pitchers that you need to be aware of are, you mentioned two of them already. The other guys are Bryce Wilson. There you go. Touki Toussaint. Yes, he's still only 23 years old. So
yeah, I believe Touki had an injury, and that's kind of what kept him out.
Okay. I know I saw him a couple of times last year, but, I mean, they're loaded at pitching, but it's a lot of raw, young pitching.
Yeah. And the Patrick Weigel guy, he played in AA a little bit last year, and he looked very solid too. But Ian Anderson's obviously the cream of the crop there. I'm not completely sold on him. A lot of people are. But we'll just – because I feel like the Braves over the last few years, they had a lot of guys that were, supposed to be billeted as very good starters. Like Aaron Blair always comes to mind, and Newcomb really too. And it's like they did okay, but they were never what they were billeted as. So I always take Braves pitching prospects now with a grain of salt, because they always say, "Oh," especially living in the South, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's going to be like the next John Smoltz, the next Tom Glavine," and I'm just like, let's calm it down. Let's see if he can make 30 starts in a season. Then we'll talk about who he's like.
The last guy here I see who that we might recognize that has a projected WAR over 2.0 is Jake Odorizzi, who went to the I guess he stayed with the Twins.
Okay. Yeah, he accepted the qualifying offer.
Right, I remember now. Yeah.
He had a solid year. I mean, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of anchored what was not a very good starting staff, which I think the Twins are the biggest losers in free agency because they kept Odorizzi and then brought back Pineda, but I just feel like their biggest weakness was their starting staff, and where have they improved it?
No, they really haven't. I mean, they brought in Homer Bailey as well and Rich Hill, who's recovering from jail or something. I don't know. And then that's why, as a White Sox fan, I was like adamant, like, you gotta take advantage of this. Because they brought back all their basically their entire hitting lineup.
Yeah.
The rotation is there for the taking if they really want it. And the White Sox can be the cream of the crop in the AL Central if they really want to. And that's why I'm always like, they got to sign this guy, you got to sign that guy, you got to sign that guy. Because the Twins they're not doing anything right now when they should be doing everything they can to take advantage of a declining Cleveland Indians team and two craptacular Detroit Tigers and Kansas City Royals teams.
Right now, your two highest projected WAR pitchers that haven't been signed are Alex Wood and Ivan Nova. If I'm the Twins, Alex Wood you got to go get him. I'm sure at this point he's going to accept a 1-year deal. And I've always been a big Alex Wood believer as long as he can stay healthy and get on the mound with that funky delivery. But I don't know. That seems like a guy you would need to go get.
Yeah, bring the band back together. They were
a career 3.4 ERA. What's wrong with that? Wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that.
It worked for the Dodgers when they had them both, Alex Wood and Rich Hill. Why not? I mean, and now you bring in Alex Wood, and now you don't have to depend so much on Rich Hill.
Yeah. I do like the Homer Bailey sign because when he went to Oakland, I actually picked him up in that crazy 30-team, 40-man roster league. I picked him up after where was he before that? He got traded from the Royals to Oakland, I believe.
That sounds about right.
And then when he got to Oakland, they started making him throw his splitter like a lot. And his splitter was actually really good. It was one of the best splitters in the league. So I do think Homer Bailey is a good, back of the rotation starter for him. Rich Hill, I don't know when they're going to get Rich Hill back. I think it's like June or July because he had surgery.
Yeah.
But again, that dude can never stay healthy.
Yeah, but when he does,
when he does that curveball, we'll play.
That's fun. That is fun. That guy has reinvented his career just by being encouraged to throw more of his breaking pitches.
At age 35, he was about ready to be done, and then the Dodgers said, "Hey, come here. Well, we'll get you."
And now he's in his 40s, and we're talking about how, man, this guy could be awesome if he could just stay healthy. Like he still has untapped potential or something.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's the reason. That's what I wanted. I remember now. I wanted to read this comment from our fearless leader, Vincent Mercandetti, who I gotta shout out to that guy. He's like, I know the idea was always there, but he really was all action to set these podcasts up. You've seen all of them already. I think there's maybe one more that has yet to debut. No, 2. I think there's 2 that haven't debuted yet. This is my 3rd debut, so I'm a little tuckered out at this point, but it's totally worth it when you have great teammates and you got a guy like Vince Mercandetti just kind of just spearheading this whole thing. But he's
all in our comments too.
Oh yeah, he's all about.
He's been with us. He's been with us.
He's a day oneer. But I just want to read this out loud. Vince Mercandetti says, he's a Yankees fan, by the way, in case you don't understand the context. They could have Jesus Christ in their staff, and he still wouldn't get through 6 at Yankee Stadium in the playoffs. Now, with that being said, can the White Sox get over the Yankees in the playoffs?
That would be I say no because the White Sox bullpen is still a complete question mark, I think. They just brought in who? Cishek?
I'm sorry, what was that?
They just brought in Steve Cishek. That was their big relief pitching signing.
They signed. They're gonna bring back Alex Colomé and man. I was gonna say we should probably dedicate an entire podcast to just the relievers because
just the relievers.
I'm all about relievers, man. That's why I always feel like I have an advantage over everybody else because when I do these rankings in our league, in our fantasy baseball league, I also look at the top 4, top 5 relief pitchers,
mm-hmm.
and while everybody's like going after closers and wasting draft picks, I'm just look at this. I'll get a little bit of Kelvin Herrera because we also do rate stats in our league. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. A little bit of Will Harris and Will Smith and give me all the Wills. I'm always willing.
All of the Wills. So yeah, Chicago's relief pitchers Steve Cishek and Ross Detweiler.
Hey man, there's value in Ross. Never mind. Anyway, but hey, listen, there's plenty of time to make improvements, right?
Of course.
Yeah. Moving on to who is Josh Lindblom? Well, I don't know why his name sounds familiar, but
he played. Let me go back.
It says KBO.
Yeah, he was in the KBO, and he learned a new splitter or like forkball type deal. But he's been in the league before. I just can't remember where. He pitched with the Dodgers in 2011 and the Rangers in 2013.
Yeah. And
then 1 game with the Athletics in 2014. So he went to KBO, did really well. Apparently, I think they said it was like a splitter forkball kind of one of those real screwy pitches. So we'll see how it plays over here.
Yeah.
But Milwaukee's throwing anything they can to try and fill out a pitching staff. They have like potentially one of the best offensive lineups, but their defense is going to be not good, and their pitching is going to be even worse. So I don't know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, I don't know either. But it always seems like there's always like that pitcher, that American pitcher that went to South Korea and learned a new pitch or whatever, and they come back and they are better for it. So maybe that's worth, going after in drafts this year.
Miles Michaelis was that guy a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think Lance Lynn. No, who am I thinking of?
Did Lance Lynn go KBO? No.
I'm thinking of another. Was it Colby Lewis? Anyway.
That sounds about right. Something like that.
Yeah, I remember he played for the Rangers, and remember, never trust Rangers pitcher. Well, that was the one Rangers again. Unfortunately, the name is escaping me, and I'm just waiting for someone in the comments to let me know, hey, it's this guy, you idiot. So that's it for the 2 WAR pitchers projected who are supposed to get 2.0 or higher, who have been signed so far, or free agents that are available. Because the rest of this list is just a bunch of meh for me, like Rick Porcello, Wade Miley, Brett Anderson, Michael Pineda.
It can't be more meh than the projected starting rotation for the Brewers that I'm looking at. Roster resource. You know who their number 2 starting pitcher is? And I can't say I don't like it because he's like my number 5 starter in fantasy. Okay. Adrian Hauser is their number 2 starting pitcher right now. Ouch. That's rough. But that's really rough.
But tell me more how they're going to finish ahead of the Cubs in this
NL Central. I don't think they will. I think right now the team to beat in the Central is going to be the Reds.
Yeah, and we just talked about them, and we didn't get a chance to talk about their starting rotation. But this is a good place to stop unless you have any final words, any final comments out there for anybody, anything?
I know there were a couple of questions in the comments that I wanted to get to. Right. Right at the very beginning, I'm not sure if he's still with us, but I can't find it anymore.
Are you talking about Bill?
Bill was talking. He said he's never really done fantasy. What would you say to him to make him learn it or whatever? That's what he was asking.
Yeah, I don't play fantasy sports, so for someone like me who doesn't play, how should I go about learning? And then, I'm surprised that Roberto Martinez has never played. Our fellow admin.
That was shocking to me too.
Okay, well, I'm glad you guys are tuning in, but how should I go about learning? Join a league. Get a bunch of your friends together. You must know a friend or somebody who has played fantasy baseball. And let me tell you, if you have a friend who does fantasy baseball, believe me, they will sit down with you and just talk your ear off and teach you all the little intricacies and nuances. Because look at us, we have a fantasy baseball podcast, and we're already.
Listen to us. Listen to us.
That's number 2. Listen to us.
Completely infallible.
Tune in every other week, I guess. And then, and we're already like an hour and so. Like the target was 45 minutes. We're already way past that at this point. But who cares, right? Because it seems like people are still with us, and it's hot stove. It's like the best time because we're just kind of speculating and just thinking what if this and what if that, and this is exciting. This is, it's no different than what you're doing, but without the fantasy baseball cloud raining down on you. So imagine talking baseball, but then you actually, join a league with your best friends or just strangers online. That's how I got onto it. Is playing as an 18-year-old. I was playing with strangers, with 40-year-old men. Hey, mister, you want to do some fantasy sports with me? And
open the pedo van. Hey, you want to play fantasy baseball?
I have a league constitution for you.
We have vetoes.
Hey, you ever hear of Jose Vito? Have I? Well, let me show you the stats of what we look for in a 5x5 rotisserie league. But all jokes aside, so imagine talking baseball already, but then you actually applying that knowledge to improve what your virtual team might look like. And I don't know, if you're a big baseball fan like us, and if you haven't played fantasy baseball, you should just do it. We have plenty of members in our group. That's always
you'll be able to start one up if you really want to.
Yeah, like I'm full. Two's my max that I'm allowed to have nowadays. Because, I'm married. And then, but there's plenty of people. Hey, anybody want to join the fantasy league? Sign up, and then you could do it for free or you could pay. And like most leagues, they're not going to charge in terms of owners and commissioners. They're not going to charge you more than $50 a year, which, for 6 months of entertainment, I think that's worth the price of admission. And you might get a chance to get some prize money and a nice fancy banner as our other 2 admins, Aaron Zook and Vince Mercandetti, already have their 2 from me because they are in our fantasy league.
When do I get my 3rd place banner for back-to-back third place?
When do you?
I'm very good at coming in 3rd place.
Yeah, I was going to say, when do you get past 3rd place?
That would be nice. I think there was another question from Vince about Antonio Senzatella. Yeah. I think we basically are sold that we're never going to draft a Rockies pitcher ever again.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I did draft German Marquez this year and used him in a package to, in my opinion, completely rip off the champion, Aaron. I traded German Marquez, Buster Posey, and Max Muncy and got back Jacob deGrom and some trash. But I got Jacob deGrom. That's all that mattered.
Listen, the Rockies, they always tease you, right? Like, I always had the rule, never draft a Texas Rangers pitcher. It's not the same rule applicable to the Colorado Rockies because there's always something promising about. Like, I was a big John Gray fan for a long time, and every time I wanted to draft him, someone always snatches him from me, and I miss out on that. Whether that's an advantage or disadvantage, that's your call. But man, I don't know. It's like John Gray came in with throwing high 90s fastballs, and you would think, well, that should translate well, right? And it hasn't. Nope. And I'm just, trying to look at what the guy that you guys are in quest, Senzatella, is saying. Is he asking because he's a fellow Italian? Is that what he's asking?
I thought Senzatella was from Mexico. Let me look.
Oh, okay. He has an Italian-looking name, but that makes sense, I guess. Oh. Anyway, what was my train of thought? Okay, so he's in the low 90s, right-handed pitcher, right? So you'd think that should be good, and it still looks like he's still strong in the low 90s. He has let's see, three different pitches, I should say. He should probably develop a changeup to help him out, but it's Colorado, whatever. Even if he doesn't have a changeup, it's just going to go out for a bloop single anyway. But he doesn't.
Yeah, it's like Gray. I'm looking at. He just has the fastball, and he throws it way too much, and it gets crushed.
Yeah. And then in terms of Senzatella, he doesn't miss a lot of bats. Like he's
a pitch to contact guy.
Thank you, a pitch to contact guy in the wrong ballpark, unfortunately. And I know he's only 24 years old, but there's really, these Rockies pitchers, there's always all types of upside and intrigue. You just mentioned German Marquez, and it's like they just can't put it together for whatever reason. And I think that if they could have the humidifiers, they could maybe add a dome to kind of control the elements. I don't know, but this is like what I've been doing fantasy for 20 years now. That's how old I am, I guess. And it seems like no matter who's out there, Darryl Kyle, Mike Hampton, no matter who's out there, you can't trust any of these guys. Sean, you still there? Oh, boy. All right, well, with Sean kind of disappearing on me, I think this is a good place to stop the show. Yeah, he lost power. Anyway, we rambled on long enough. Thank you. For those who have been here this long, thank you so much for sticking around. This went longer than I expected, but I think we got a lot of good stuff talking. We got some feedback from you guys. Thank you so much for your help and your questions and your assistance. So we will see you next time. We're thinking of doing this again late January as Mr. Flannery gets ready to take that next step into adulthood as he's about to get married soon. So we wish I wanted to do it on the air and congratulate him one more time. But yeah, that's a good place to stop. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.